Imagine you're in the middle of working and then everything goes dark. You're immediately stunned, not knowing what happened. You question it right away with a yell, "Hey, yo, what happened?" And the lights come back. You hear an apology from afar off and you realize someone accidentally flipped the switch. No harm, no foul though, right? But what if you're in a dangerous environment where even the smallest lack of situational awareness could put you in immediate danger? How many times have people been hurt due to someone not thinking and doing something as simple as flipping a switch? Now imagine if you were servicing a machine and someone flipped a switch that ends up activating the gears on it. It's easy to assume that machines are safe once they've been shut down, but that assumption often leads to significant losses. Our pay, our body parts, favorite hobbies, or tragically even the loss of a loved one. This type of lockout tagout accident happens all too often, reminding us that turning off machinery simply isn't enough. A lockout or tagout is required anytime machines or equipment are serviced, which could cause injury to employees due to an unexpected startup. Such situations could occur when repairing electrical circuits, cleaning or oiling machinery with moving parts, clearing jammed mechanisms, or through the general upkeep of machinery. Lockouts unnecessary during normal production operations if no guards are removed and employees aren't placing any part of their body in a danger zone. Normal production operations just means the machine performing its intended function. Lockout Tagout addresses practices and procedures you need to isolate machinery from any power source and prevent moving parts from starting up while performing service. The purpose of this OSHA standard is to keep employees safe in the workplace. Remember that safety is always the top priority. In the case of an unexpected startup, all protective measures must be taken to isolate any source of hazardous energy. Employees can be seriously hurt or even die if the machinery they're servicing unexpectedly energizes, starts up, or releases stored energy. Preventing this from happening is a cooperative effort. The Lockout Tagout standard explains the employer's responsibility to protect their employees from hazardous energy sources on machines and equipment during service and maintenance. Employers must establish an energy control protocol to ensure that machines are disconnected from their energy sources and inoperative before servicing or maintenance. As part of an energy control program, employers must use appropriate lockout tagout devices on the energy isolating equipment to prevent unexpected re-energization. Employees should also be trained on the safe application, use, and removal of energy controls. Employers must inspect these procedures at least annually to ensure that they're being followed and that they remain effective in preventing employee exposure to hazardous energy. This energy control protocol must train employees on how to use the procedures, specific steps to shut down, isolate, block, and secure machines, as well as steps designating the safe placement, removal, and transfer of lockout tagout devices. Employers need to be able to identify who has responsibility for the lockout tagout devices and specific requirements for testing machines to determine the effectiveness of these devices. Since each machine's different, you shouldn't have the same lockout tagout policy for all machines. Training must ensure that employees understand the energy control program's purpose, function, and restrictions. Employers must provide training specific to the needs of authorized, affected, and other employees. Authorized employees are those responsible for implementing energy control procedures or performing service or maintenance activities. They need the knowledge and skills necessary for the safe application, use, and removal of energy isolating devices. Authorized employees need to recognize the type and magnitude of hazardous energy sources in the workplace and the energy control procedures used to control those hazards. Affected employees operate the relevant machinery or have jobs that require them to be in the area where the service or maintenance is performed. These employees don't service or maintain machinery or perform lockout tagout activities, but must also receive training about the purpose and use of energy control procedures. They should know when the energy control procedure is being used, its purpose, and the importance of not tampering with lockout or tagout devices or using equipment that's been locked or tagged out. All other employees whose work operations are in an area where energy control procedures are used must receive instruction on these procedures. They need to know to never remove a lockout or tagout device or attempt to restart, re-energize, or operate the machinery. If any tagout devices are used, all employees must receive training about the limitations of tags. The employer has to provide initial training before starting service and maintenance activities. Employers must provide retraining for all authorized and affected employees whenever there's a change in job assignments, machinery, or processes that present a new hazard or energy control procedure. Retraining is also necessary if it's found that there are deviations from or inadequacies in the employee's knowledge or use of the energy control procedures. Also, the employer must certify that the training's been given to all employees covered by the standard. When lockout tagout is performed, it's important to identify all possible energy sources that could be inside the machines and equipment. This isn't limited to electrical energy, which is the most common source. It also includes mechanical, pneumatic, hydraulic, chemical, thermal, or stored energy, and other forms of potential energy. There are two main types of energy that we care about: kinetic energy and potential energy. Kinetic energy basically is the energy of motion. So an object's in motion, it has kinetic energy. A spinning wheel has an example of kinetic energy. Potential energy is stored energy. So a spring under tension, for instance, or an object that's going to fall under gravity are examples of potential energy. Whenever any part of the body is exposed to these types of energy while servicing or maintaining equipment, lockout tagout procedures must be followed. You may be asking yourself, what's an energy isolating device? An energy isolating device is simply a device that physically prevents transmission or the release of energy. The primary way to prevent the release of hazardous energy during service activities is by using energy isolating devices such as manually operated circuit breakers, disconnect switches, line valves, and safety blocks. Lockout requires a lock or other lockout tool to hold the energy isolating device in a safe position to prevent the machinery from becoming re-energized. Some examples are keys or combination locks. In rare circumstances, it's not possible to lock out the energy isolating device associated with the machinery. In that case, you must securely fasten a tagout device as close as safely possible to the energy isolating device in a position where it'll be immediately obvious to anyone attempting to operate it. The tag's going to alert employees to the hazard of re-energization. It states that employees may only operate the machinery when the tag's removed following an established procedure. Tags are essentially warning devices and don't provide the same physical restraint as a lock. Lockout and tagout devices should only be used for controlling energy and not for anything else. In addition, they must be durable enough to withstand workplace conditions and be standardized according to color, shape, or size. Tags should be legible and offer employees clear instructions such as "do not start," "do not open," or "do not operate." Devices should be substantial enough to minimize the likelihood of premature or accidental removal. Lockout devices must be strong enough to require excessive force or specialized tools to remove them. Locks must be uniquely keyed so that each employee has the only key to their lock and should be labeled to identify the specific employee who has applied the lock, as they be the only ones allowed to remove it. Tagout attachments are non-reusable, self-locking, and non-releasable with a minimum unlocking strength of 50 pounds. They should be attachable by hand using a one-piece nylon cable tie or its equivalent that can withstand all environments and conditions. Before an authorized employee applies any sort of lockout or tagout device, affected employees must be notified to prevent possible risks and allow them to clear potentially hazardous areas. Before any employee turns off equipment, the authorized employee should be aware of the type and magnitude of the energy, its hazards, and the means to control it. The authorized employee will be especially mindful of the energy that can be stored or accumulated after a shutdown. The shutdown of machinery and equipment needs to occur in an orderly manner using the lockout tagout shutdown procedures associated with each machine or piece of equipment. All energy isolation devices necessary to control energy should be located and engaged to completely de-energize the equipment and isolate it from energy sources. The authorized employee or team leader will verify the operation of each energy isolation device. Once the process begins, the authorized person must shut down the engines or motors, de-energize electrical circuits, and block fluid flow in hydraulic or pneumatic systems. They must also block any machine and equipment parts against motion, including potential motion caused by gravity. If it can't be locked, attach a tag close to the isolating device so it's immediately obvious to anyone who might try to operate the machinery. Immediately after applying lockout or tagout devices, the authorized employee will ensure all potentially hazardous stored or residual energy is relieved, disconnected, restrained, and otherwise rendered safe. They should then lower suspended parts, discharge capacitors, release or block springs that are under compression or tension, and vent fluids from lines, pressure vessels, tanks, or accumulators. Never vent toxic, flammable, or explosive substances directly into the atmosphere. The authorized employee will verify the machinery equipment is actually isolated and de-energized before starting work on locked out or tagged out equipment. A good rule of thumb to remember in the process of device shutdown is lock it, tag it, try it. Just like steps need to be followed when shutting down equipment, certain steps should be taken when the servicing or maintenance is completed and the machine is ready to return to normal operating condition. First, make sure machinery or equipment is properly reassembled. Don't leave any parts behind. Inspect machinery or equipment to ensure the removal of non-essential items, including tools that may have been accidentally left behind. Make sure all employees are safely outside danger zones. Notify affected employees about the removal of lockout/tagout devices, that energy will be reapplied, and verify the controls are in neutral. Only the authorized employee who applied the lockout/tagout device may remove it. The authorized employee will notify all affected employees that the servicing or maintenance is completed and the machine or equipment is ready. Now it's time to re-energize the machinery and get back to work. Certain procedures must be followed when authorized employees remove lockout/tagout devices. First, clear the machine or equipment of tools and materials. Then remove employees and lockout/tagout devices from the danger zone. Energize and proceed with testing or positioning. De-energize all systems and reapply energy control measures. If an outside contractor services or maintains machinery, the on-site employer and the contractor must inform each other of their respective lockout or tagout procedures. The on-site employer also must ensure that employees understand and comply with all requirements of the contractor's energy control program. When more than one person performs servicing or maintenance, each authorized employee must place the lock or tag on the energy isolating source. In cases where an energy control device can't accept multiple locks, a hasp or lock box may be used. If the equipment can't be locked out, then each authorized employee must place his tag on the equipment. Employers need to make sure that there's a continuity of lockout or tagout protection. This includes the orderly transfer of lockout or tagout procedures between outgoing and incoming shifts to control hazardous energy. When lockout or tagout tools remain on energy isolation devices from a previous shift, the incoming shift members must verify for themselves that the machinery is effectively isolated and de-energized. Locks and tags must only be removed by the authorized employee who affixed them. If it becomes necessary to remove a lock or tag that an employee has inadvertently left, notify the person's supervisor and ensure that the person's not on the premises. Then attempt to contact the employee at home. Management authorizes the removal of locks and tags according to the emergency removal procedure and must document the removal activity. Notify the authorized employee before they return to work. Employers are required to review their procedures at least once a year to ensure that they provide adequate worker protection. As part of the review, employers need to correct any deviations and inadequacies found in the energy control procedure or its application. The periodic review inspection makes sure that employees are familiar with their responsibilities and continue to implement energy control procedures properly. The inspector needs to be an authorized person not involved in using the energy control being inspected. Their job is to determine that employees are following steps in the energy control procedure and know their responsibilities. They must also ensure the procedure is adequate to provide the necessary protection and what changes, if any, are needed. The employer must certify that the designated inspectors are performing periodic inspection. The certification should also specify the machine or equipment on which the energy control procedure was used, the inspection date, the names of employees included in the inspection, and the inspector's name. Procedures must be developed, documented, and utilized to control potentially hazardous energy. The progress towards improving safety has come a long way on our journey to zero incidents, but we won't get there if we don't follow safety measures. Just because an incident hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't. Increasing your safety awareness and properly identifying hazards to reduce risk in the lockout tagout process is going to help your team work together safely and productively.